Okay, imagine this for a second. A world where seeing isn't just, light hitting your eyes. It's something active, something you can negotiate.
Yeah, like, what if what you saw wasn't the reality, but your specific customized reality?
Exactly. And that's what we're diving into today, the pretty mind-bending implications of augmented eyeballs.
Specifically, we're talking AR implants, surgically put right into your eye. This tech, it really started picking up steam in the late 2020s.
Right.
And the initial promise was, this seamless blend of the physical world and the digital world. But our source for this, Augmented Eyeballs, seeing, believing, and reality's filter, it shows how things got way more complicated really fast.
Yeah, it sounds like it reshaped, everything.
Yeah.
Daily life, even how we thought about truth itself.
Definitely.
So our mission here is to unpack how that all happened, look at the early hopes, the consequences nobody really saw coming, and these huge questions that popped up about autonomy, privacy, perception itself.
We're drawing heavily on that augmented eyeball source, trying to piece together this massive shift.
So yeah, get ready for a journey into how sight evolved, how convenience became this massive revolution, and how by 2035, that old saying, seeing is believing, it just wasn't true anymore.
Not in the same way, at least.
So let's start at the beginning. These implants, they weren't just like dreamt up for gamers or something right out of the gate, were they?
Oh, absolutely not. No, the primary driver initially was hardcore medical need.
Okay.
I mean, think about restoring vision for someone who's blind or helping people with degenerative eye diseases.
Yeah.
It was a massive step forward in healthcare.
That makes sense. A genuine medical tool first. But how does something like that jump from the clinic to, basically everyone wanting it? What was the pull?
Well, it's kind of a classic tech story, isn't it? The source actually compares it to hearing aids.
Oh, right.
Yeah, how they started for severe hearing loss, but eventually became much more common, even for slight improvements. With these eye implants, the practical uses were just incredibly tempting.
Like what kind of things?
Imagine needing directions. Instead of looking at your phone, a glowing path just appears right there on the street in front of you, perfectly integrated.
Okay, that's pretty cool. Or, like the source mentions, being at some work event and getting discrete reminders for names, faces. Nobody else knows you're getting the prompt.
Exactly. Little things that just made life easier, smoother, and that convenience, it really snowballed.
Snowballed how?
By 2030, it was all about customization. People weren't just getting the basic functions. They were paying extra premium prices for really personalized visual experiences.
Right. This is where it gets really interesting. Not just data overlays, but changing your whole view.
Yeah, personalized overlays, augmented landscapes. You could literally change the scenery. Or apply mood-specific color filters to everything you see.
The source has that wild example, doesn't it? Checking into a Marriott hotel.
Oh, yeah.
And paying extra to make your standard room look like it's, on the moon? Or deep underwater? Kind of like that movie, Total Recall.
Exactly like that. It just shows how quickly things shifted. Reality itself, it basically got reduced to just another aesthetic choice.
An aesthetic choice?
Your whole world tailored to your taste or maybe just what you could afford. It really messes with the idea of a shared reality,
Definitely. But, okay, alongside all this customization, there was this other idea floating around, wasn't there? This hope that maybe these implants could make us more empathetic.
Yeah, that was a big early hope. The thinking was if you could experience something more directly, maybe through someone else's augmented view or through specially designed AR content, you'd feel it more deeply. Our source mentions the Grenfell Tower fire in London back in 2017. Lots of people saw it on the news, right?
Of course. Tragic.
But the author notes feeling it much more profoundly only when seeing the actual site months later. That suggests, a deeper link through direct experience.
Okay, I can see that.
And artists tried to harness this, like that 2018 film Refugee by Alexander J. Farrell.
Yeah.
It used AR and VR to connect viewers really deeply with a Syrian refugee family, much more intensely than a standard documentary could.
So there was real potential there,
Yeah.
A tool for connection. But you also had skeptics warning about, negative dependence?
Exactly. That was a counter-argument. Even if it could be used for good, what was the danger? What was the actual outcome?
And what is the outcome, according to the source?
Well, the harsh reality was most people didn't use it for empathy. They used it to filter out the unpleasant stuff. Graffiti, trash on the street, even homeless people, you could just make them invisible in your field of vision.
Oh, wow.
So the result, chillingly, was that empathy took a dive. People weren't engaging with the difficult parts of reality. They were opting out. The tech made it easy to be apathetic.
That's disturbing. And it wasn't like nobody saw this coming, right? I mean, fiction had kind of warned us. The source brings up Black Mirror, that episode, Archangel.
Yeah, absolutely prophetic. Released way back in 2017.
Remind us, what was the plot there?
It was about a mother who uses an implant to monitor her daughter, but also to filter out distressing images from her daughter's sight.
Okay.
And what starts as, protection, it just spirals into this intense control, completely destroying trust.
And the source says this basically played out in real life.
Pretty much. Those debates about autonomy, privacy, manipulation, they jump straight from sci-fi shows into company boardrooms, into courtrooms. Once these implants became common, the fiction became fact.
And you can bet governments saw the potential too, not just corporations.
Oh, immediately. They saw it could be used for all sorts of things. Pervasive nationalistic advertising, maybe.
Yeah.
Or mandatory public health messages.
Like what?
Imagine calorie counts just popping up on fast food automatically.
Wow.
Or alerts about air quality, noise pollution, right there in your vision, whether you want it or not.
So potentially very controlling.
Which naturally led to pushback.
Right, the resistance. The source talks about natural vision communities emerging in the early 2030s. Who are these people? Just anti-tech?
No, not really Luddites in the traditional sense. They were more like artists, activists, thinkers, people who made a conscious choice against the implants.
Why?
They argued for unmediated experience. Their whole thing was basically reality didn't need fixing. And it's interesting, the source draws a parallel to activism from the 2020s, like women fighting against that proposed compulsory pregnancy tracking register.
That not your body, not his choice idea.
Exactly. That same sort of resistance to embedded tech that could track you, reveal private stuff, or just take away your control of your own experience, your own body, your own sight.
And this even touched religion, faith. How did that work?
Yeah, big questions there. Could AR overlays, like visualizing halos on saints or making scripture passages animate, could that actually enhance a spiritual experience?
Or would it just be a distraction? Another layer between you and the sacred?
Precisely. Or did it become almost necessary? Like you needed the AR enhancements to fully engage, which fundamentally changes the nature of faith practice.
Were people looking for something more real?
It seems like it. The source mentions church attendance spiked around 2025, partly maybe due to political stuff, but maybe also hinting at this wider search for unfiltered connection.
Right.
And by the 2030s, you had sermons specifically about seeing the world as God intended, drawing big crowds. People were craving authenticity.
And on a more personal level, day-to-day relationships.
Oh, I got complicated there too. Couples arguing over filter settings, like asking your partner to turn off their filters became this new level of intimacy, of vulnerability.
Wow, show me the world unfiltered the way you really see it without the tech. That's intense.
Super intense. Sharing your unmediated perception as a sign of trust.
Okay, so people are customizing reality, filtering out the bad, debating ethics. But what was the ultimate psychological cost of all this perception control?
Well, this is where it gets really dark. The source talks about this unsettling thing that happened when people tried to disconnect, to turn the AR off.
What happened?
They started to doubt everything. They couldn't be sure if they were actually seeing the real world or if their brain was somehow still stuck, still projecting the AR version, or maybe being tricked in some new way.
So they lost the baseline. They couldn't trust their own eyes anymore, even when the tech was supposedly off.
Exactly. The line between the real and the artificial just completely dissolved for some people. An existential crisis, really.
That sounds terrifying.
Yeah.
What did people do? How did they cope with that level of uncertainty?
Tragically. The source mentions all too common scenes of self-blinding.
Wait, really? People blinded themselves?
Yes. Yeah. As a desperate, tragic way to escape that unbearable doubt, that inability to know what was real anymore.
That's horrifying. A devastating consequence.
It really underscores the profound impact of messing with something as fundamental as perception.
So looking back at this whole journey, these augmented eyes, they really forced us to look inward, didn't they? To ask some fundamental questions.
Absolutely. Questions about our relationship with reality itself. What do we actually gain when we enhance our sight like this?
And what do we lose when we hand over our reality to a filter, to an algorithm, to a corporation?
And maybe the biggest question, who gets to control what we see? Who designs the filters? Who sets the defaults?
Yeah. It leaves you thinking, If our world can be so customized, so controlled, how do we even know if a connection with someone is genuine? Or is it just a perfectly curated illusion we're both experiencing?
Mm-hmm. And what does empathy even mean in that kind of world? If you can literally filter out suffering, what would it actually take to truly see another person, beyond all the possible filters, theirs and ours?
A lot to think about there.
Yeah.
A really profound shift triggered by trying to essentially upgrade our eyeballs.